It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of lazy day when the sun is warm, and everything feels calm. My wife and I were sitting on the patio, sipping cold drinks, when the pool boy showed up. He was young, tall, and full of energy. I didn't mind. I paid him well to keep the place spotless. But then, right in front of me, my wife leaned back in her chair, pointed at him, and with a smirk said, "I'd gladly trade you for him any day." She laughed like it was a joke, but I could feel the sting behind her words. I didn't react. I didn't argue or scold her. I just let it sit there, pretending her words didn't bother me. But deep down, a fire lit inside me. That wasn't just some playful tease. It was disrespect, and worse, it was said while the very guy she was comparing me to stood a few feet away. I watched the pool boy chuckle awkwardly, clearly embarrassed. But my wife, she enjoyed every second of it. That night, I lay awake thinking. I replayed her words over and over. She thought she could humiliate me, that I'd just laugh along or shrug it off. But no, I wasn't going to let it slide. She had crossed a line, and I had no intention of forgiving it so easily. If she wanted to play games, I was going to play one she'd never forget. The very next day, I spoke to the pool boy privately. I told him I appreciated his work, but I was letting him go, effective immediately. He looked confused, but I explained it was nothing personal. Truth was, I had no problem with him. My problem was with my wife. Removing her little eye candy was the first step of my plan. When my wife came out later that afternoon and noticed the pool boy wasn't there, she frowned. "Where's Daniel?" she asked. I smiled and said calmly, "I let him go. Don't worry, I'll take care of the pool from now on." She looked irritated, but I could tell she didn't want to start a fight right then. Over the next week, I started making changes. I hit the gym harder, polished up my looks, and even upgraded my wardrobe. Friends began to compliment me, saying I looked sharper and more confident. My wife noticed too, but instead of supporting me, she grew insecure. She had gotten so used to being the center of attention that the shift made her uneasy. Then came the real twist. A client of mine, a wealthy businessman, was hosting a huge summer event. He asked if I could manage the contracts for him, and in return, he invited me and my lovely wife. But instead of bringing her, I told him I'd come alone. That night, dressed in a new suit, I walked in and ended up surrounded by people who respected me, admired me, and wanted to connect with me. My wife, who had mocked me, stayed home sulking, wondering why she wasn't included. The following day, she finally snapped. "Why didn't you take me?" she demanded. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Why would I? You made it clear you'd trade me for someone else. Why should I value you when you don't value me?" For once, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, stunned, realizing her little joke had spiraled into something she couldn't control. The revenge wasn't about screaming or fighting. It was about showing her what life without my respect looked like. I started doing things for myself, building connections, and growing stronger. She, on the other hand, grew restless. Without her pool boy to flirt with and without me chasing after her, she looked smaller, weaker. Soon, whispers started in our circle. People noticed how distant we had become, and while they praised me for leveling up my life, she became the one people quietly pitied. She had underestimated me, thinking I'd always be the quiet husband sitting in the background. But now, the spotlight had shifted. One evening, she tried to soften up, cooking dinner and acting sweet. "I was just joking that day," she said quietly. "You know I didn't mean it." I leaned back and smiled coldly. "Maybe you didn't, maybe you did. But I meant it when I said actions have consequences." From that day forward, she was the one trying to impress me, chasing after my attention, and worrying about losing me. And the best part? I never raised my voice, never fought, never begged. My revenge was simple. I let her taste her own medicine, served with silence and dignity. She thought trading me for the pool boy was funny. But in the end, she learned the hard way. She was the one easily replaced. And I didn't even need to say another word to prove it.